Okay, let's see what happens here. How's your voice for reading? Is it good? How's your voice for reading? Why? English is not so great. Your reading level's not great. Okay.
Chapter 89, The Super Excellent Power of Krishna. Long, long ago, there was an assembly of great sages on the bank of the river Saraswati who performed a great sacrifice of the name Sastra. In such assemblies, the great sages present usually discuss Vedic subject matters and philosophical topics, and in this particular meeting the following question was raised. The three predominating deities of this material world, namely Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, are directing all the affairs of the cosmos. But who among them is the supreme? After much discussion on this question, the great sage named Bhrigu, the son of Lord Brahma, was deputed to test all three predominating deities and report to the assembly as to who is the greatest. Being thus deputed, the great sage Bhrigu Muni first of all went to his father's residence in Brahmaloka. The three deities are the controllers of the three material qualities, namely the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. The plan decided upon by the sages was for Bhrigu to test which one of the predominating deities possesses the quality of goodness in full. Therefore, when Bhrigu Muni reached his father, Lord Brahma, because Bhrigu wanted to test whether Brahma had the quality of goodness, he purposely did not offer his respects to his father, either by offering obeisances or by offering prayers. It is the duty of a son or a disciple to offer respects and recite suitable prayers when he approaches his father or spiritual master. But Bhrigu Muni purposely failed to offer respects, just to see Lord Brahma's reaction to this negligence. Lord Brahma was very angry at his son's impudence, and he showed signs which definitely proved this to be so. He was even prepared to condemn Bhrigu by cursing him. But because Bhrigu was his son, Lord Brahma controlled his anger with great intelligence. This means that although the quality of passion was prominent in Lord Brahma, he had the power to control it. Lord Brahma's anger and his controlling his anger are likened to fire and water. Water is produced from fire at the beginning of creation, but fire can be extinguished with water. Similarly, although Lord Brahma was very angry due to his quality of passion, he could still control his passion because Bhrigu Muni was his son. After testing Lord Brahma, Bhrigu Muni went directly to Mount Kailash, where Lord Shiva resides. Bhrigu Muni happened to be Lord Shiva's brother. Therefore, as soon as Bhrigu Muni approached, Lord Shiva was very glad and personally rose to embrace him. But when Lord Shiva approached, Bhrigu Muni refused to embrace him. "My dear brother," he said, "you are always very impure. Because you smear your body with ashes, you are not very clean. Please do not touch me." When Bhrigu Muni refused to embrace his brother, saying that Lord Shiva was impure, the latter became very angry with him. It is said that an offense can be committed either with the body, with the mind, or by speech. Bhrigu Muni's first offense, committed toward Lord Brahma, was an offense with the mind. His second offense, committed toward Lord Shiva, by insulting him, criticizing him for unclean habits, was an offense by speech. Because the quality of ignorance is predominant in Lord Shiva, when he heard Bhrigu's insult, his eyes immediately became red with anger. With uncontrollable rage, he took up his trident and prepared to kill Bhrigu Muni. At that time, Lord Shiva's wife Parvati was present. Her personality, like Lord Shiva's, is a mixture of the three qualities, and therefore she is called Trigunamai. In this case, she saved the situation by evoking Lord Shiva's quality of goodness. She fell down at the feet of her husband, and with her sweet words she talked him out of killing Bhrigu Muni. After being saved from the anger of Lord Shiva, Bhrigu Muni went directly to the planet Svetadweep, where Lord Vishnu was lying on a bed of flowers in the company of his wife, the goddess of fortune, who was engaged in massaging his lotus feet. There Bhrigu Muni purposely committed the greatest sin by offending Lord Vishnu by his bodily activities. The first offense committed by Bhrigu Muni was mental. The second offense was vocal, and the third offense was corporal. These different offenses are progressively greater in degree. An offense committed within the mind is a positive offense. The same offense committed verbally is comparatively more grave, and when committed by bodily action, it is superlative in offensiveness. So Bhrigu Muni committed the greatest offense by kicking the chest of the Lord in the presence of the goddess of fortune. Of course, Lord Vishnu is all merciful. He did not become angry at the activities of Bhrigu Muni, for Bhrigu Muni was a great Brahmana. A Brahmana is to be excused even if he sometimes commits an offense, and Lord Shiva set the example. Yet it is said that from the time of this incident, the goddess of fortune Lakshmi has not been very favorably disposed towards the Brahmanas, and therefore, because the goddess of fortune withholds her benedictions from them, the Brahmanas are generally very poor. Bhrigu Muni's kicking the chest of Lord Shiva was certainly a great offense, but Lord Vishnu is so great that he did not care. The so-called Brahmanas of the Kali Yuga are sometimes very proud that a great Brahmana like Bhrigu Muni could touch the chest of Lord Vishnu with his foot. But in fact, when Bhrigu Muni kicked the chest of Lord Vishnu, it was the greatest offense. Although Lord Vishnu, being greatly magnanimous, did not take it very seriously. Instead of being angry or cursing Bhrigu Muni, Lord Vishnu immediately got up from his bed, along with his wife, the goddess of fortune, and offered respectful obeisances to the Brahmana. He addressed Bhrigu Muni as follows: "My dear Brahmana, it is my greatest fortune that you have come here. Please, therefore, sit down on this cushion for a few minutes. My dear Brahmana, I'm very sorry that when you first entered my home, I could not receive you properly. It was a great offense on my part, and I beg you to pardon me. You're so pure and great that the water which washes your feet can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Therefore, I request you to purify the Vaikuntha planets where I live with my associates. My dear father, O great sage, I know that your feet are very soft, like a lotus flower, and that my chest is as hard as a thunderbolt. I'm therefore afraid that you may have felt some pain by kicking my chest. Let me touch your feet to relieve the pain you've suffered." Lord Vishnu then began to massage the feet of Brigamuni. The Lord continued to address Brigamuni. "My dear Lord," he said, "my chest has now become sanctified because of the touch of your feet, and I'm now assured that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, will be very glad to live there perpetually." Another name for Lakshmi is Chanchala.
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 C's are always CH in Sanskrit.
Okay. Indicating that she does not stay in one place for a long time. Therefore, we see that a rich man's family sometimes becomes poor after a few generations, and sometimes we see that a poor man's family becomes very rich. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is Chanchala in this material world, whereas in the Vaikuntha planet she eternally lives at the lotus feet of the Lord. Because Lakshmi is famous as Chanchala, Lord Narayan indicated that she might not have been living perpetually by his chest, but because his chest had been touched by the feet of Brigamuni, it was now sanctified, and there was no chance that the goddess of fortune would leave. Brigamuni, however, could understand his position and that of the Lord, and he was struck with wonder at the behavior of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because of his gratitude, his voice choked up, and he was unable to reply to the words of the Lord. Tears glided from his eyes, and he could not say anything. He simply stood silently before the Lord. After testing Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu, Brigamuni returned to the assembly of great sages on the bank of the river Saraswati and described his experience. After hearing him with great attention, the sages concluded that all of the predominating deities, Lord Vishnu is certainly the greatest. In Srimad Bhagavatam, these great sages are described as Brahmavadanam. Brahmavadanam means those who talk about the absolute truth, but have not yet come to a conclusion. Generally, Brahmavadi refers to the impersonalists or to those who are students of the Vedas. It is to be understood, therefore, that all the gathered sages were serious students of the Vedic literature, but had not come to a definite conclusion as to who is the supreme absolute personality of Godhead. But after hearing of Brigamuni's experience in meeting all three predominating deities, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Vishnu, the sages concluded that Lord Vishnu is the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that after hearing the details from Brigamuni, the sages were astonished because although Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were immediately agitated, Lord Vishnu, in spite of being kicked by Brigamuni, was not agitated in the least. The example is given that small lamps may be agitated by a slight breeze, but the greatest lamp or the greatest illuminating source, the sun, is never moved, even by the greatest hurricane. One's greatness has to be estimated by one's ability to tolerate provoking situations. The sages gathered on the bank of the river Saraswati concluded that one who wants actual peace and freedom from all fear should take shelter of the lotus feet of Vishnu. Since Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva lost their peaceful attitude upon a slight provocation, how can they maintain the peace and tranquility of their devotees? As for Lord Vishnu, however, it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that anyone who accepts Lord Vishnu or Krishna as the supreme friend attains the highest perfection of peaceful life. The sages thus concluded that by following the principles of Vaishnava Dharma, one becomes actually perfect, but that if one follows all the religious principles of a particular sect and does not become advanced in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, all such labor of love is fruitless. To execute religious principles means to come to the platform of perfect knowledge. If one comes to the platform of perfect knowledge, then he will be uninterested in material affairs. Perfect knowledge means knowledge of one's own self and the Supreme Self. The Supreme Self and the individual self, although one in quality, are different in quantity. This analytical understanding of knowledge is perfect. Simply to understand, I am not matter, I am spirit, is not perfect knowledge. The real religious principle is devotional service or bhakti. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says, "Give up all the religious principles and simply surrender unto me." Therefore, the term Dharma applies only to Vaishnava Dharma or Bhagavat Dharma, by following which one automatically achieves all good qualities and advancements in life. The highest perfectional knowledge is knowledge of the Supreme Lord. He cannot be understood by any process of religion other than devotional service. Therefore, the immediate result of perfect knowledge is achieved by executing devotional service. After attainment of knowledge, one becomes uninterested in the material world. This is not because of dry philosophical speculation. The devotees become uninterested in the material world, not simply because of theoretical understanding, but because of practical experience. When a devotee realizes the effect of association with the Supreme Lord, he naturally hates the association of so-called society, friendship, and love. This detachment is not dry, but is due to achieving a higher status of life by relishing transcendental mellows. It is fairly stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that after attainment of such knowledge and such detachment from material sense gratification, one's advancement in the 8 opulences, attained through mystic yoga practice, such as anima, lagima, and prapti siddhis, is also achieved without separate effort. The perfect example is Maharaj Ambarish. He was not a mystic yogi, but a great devotee. Yet in a disagreement with Maharaj Ambarish, the great mystic Durvasa was defeated in the presence of the king's devotional attitude. In other words, a devotee does not need to practice the mystic yoga system to achieve power. The power is behind him by the grace of the Lord, just as when a small child is surrendered to a powerful father. All the powers of the Father are behind him. When a person becomes famous as a devotee of the Lord, his reputation is never to be extinguished. Lord Chaitanya, when discoursing with Ramananda Roy, questioned, "What is the greatest fame?" Ramananda Roy replied that to be known as a pure devotee of Lord Krishna is the perfect fame. The conclusion, therefore, is that Vishnu Dharma, or the religion of devotional service, under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is meant for persons who are thoughtful. By proper utilization of thoughtfulness, one comes to the stage of thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one becomes free from the contamination of the faulty association of the material world, and thus becomes peaceful. The world is in a disturbed condition because of a scarcity of such peaceful devotees in human society. Unless one is a devotee, one cannot be equal to all living entities. A devotee is equally disposed toward the animals, the human beings, and all living entities, because he sees every living entity as a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. In the Ishopanishad, it is clearly stated that one who has come to the stage of seeing all living beings equally does not hate anyone nor favor anyone. The devotee does not hanker to possess more than he requires. Devotees are therefore akinchana. In any condition of life, a devotee is satisfied. It is said that a devotee is even-minded whether he is in hell or in heaven. A devotee is callous to all subjects other than his engagement in devotional service. This mode of life is the highest perfectional stage from which one can be elevated to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead. The devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are especially attracted by the highest material quality, goodness, and the qualified Brahmana is the symbolic representation of this goodness. Therefore, a devotee is attached to the Brahminical stage of life. He is not very interested in passion or ignorance, although these qualities also emanate from the Supreme Lord Vishnu. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the devotees are described as Nipuna Buddhaya, which means that they are the most intelligent class of men. Uninfluenced by attachment or hatred, the devotee lives very peacefully and is not agitated by the influence of passion or ignorance. It may be questioned here why a devotee should be attached to the quality of goodness in the material world if he is transcendental to all material qualities. The answer is that there are different kinds of people existing in the modes of material nature. Those in the mode of ignorance are called Rakshasas. Those in the mode of passion are called Asuras, and those in the mode of goodness are called Suras, or demigods. Under the direction of the Supreme Lord, these three classes of men are created by material nature, but those in the mode of goodness have a greater chance to be elevated to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead. Thus all the sages who assembled on the bank of the river Saraswati to try to determine who is the supreme predominating deity became free from all doubts without Vishnu worship. All of them thereafter engaged in devotional service, and thus they achieved the desired result and went back to Godhead. Those who are actually eager to be liberated from material entanglement would do well to accept at once the conclusion given by Sri Shukadev Goswami. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is spoken by Sukadev Goswami, it is said that hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is extremely conducive to liberation. The same fact is now confirmed by Sutta Goswami. If anyone who is traveling aimlessly within this material world cares to hear the nectarine words spoken by Sukadev Goswami, certainly he will come to the right conclusion, which is that simply by discharging devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one would be able to stop the fatigue of perpetually migrating from one material body to another. In other words, one who becomes fixed in loving devotional service to Vishnu will certainly be able to get relief from this journey of material life, and the process is very simple. One has to give oral reception to the sweet words spoken by Sukadev Goswami in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Another conclusion is that we should never consider the demigods, even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be on an equal level with Lord Vishnu. If we do this, then according to the Padma Purana, we are immediately categorized as atheists. Also in the Vedic literature known as Harivamsa, it is stated that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is to be worshipped, and that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra or any such Vishnu mantra is always to be chanted. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma says, "Both Lord Shiva and I are engaged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to act in different capacities under his direction." And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is also stated that the only master is Krishna, and that all others in the categories of life are servants of Krishna only. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed by the Lord that there is no truth superior to Krishna. Sukadev Goswami also, in order to draw attention to the fact that among all Vishnu tattva forms, Lord Krishna is 100% the Supreme Personality of Godhead, narrated the story of an incident which took place when Lord Krishna was present. Once upon a time in Dwarka, a Brahmana's wife gave birth to a child. Unfortunately, however, just after being born and touching the ground, the child immediately died. The Brahmana father took the child and went directly to the palace of the king. The Brahmana was very upset because of the untimely death of the child in the presence of his young father and mother. Thus his mind became very much disturbed. Formerly, when there were responsible kings, up to the time of Dwapara Yuga, when Lord Krishna was present, the king was liable to be blamed for the untimely death of a child in the presence of his parents. Similarly, such responsibility was there during the time of Lord Ramachandra. As we have explained in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the king was so responsible for the comforts of the citizens that he was to see that there was not even excessive heat or cold. Now the Brahmana, whose child had died, thinking there was no fault on his own part, immediately went to the palace door with the dead child in his arms, and accused the king as follows. The present king, Ugrasena, is envious of the Brahmanas. The exact word used in this connection is Brahma Dvisaha. One who is envious of the Vedas, of a qualified Brahmana, or of the Brahmana caste is called Brahma Dvis. So the king was accused of being Brahma Dvis. He was also accused of being Shatiti, falsely intelligent. The executive head of a state must be very intelligent to see to the comforts of the citizens. But according to the Brahmana, the king was not at all intelligent, although he was occupying the royal throne. Therefore, the Brahmana also called him Labdha, which means greedy. In other words, a king or an executive head of state should not occupy the exalted post of a president or king if he is greedy and self-interested. But it is natural that an executive head becomes self-interested when he is attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, another word used here is Visayatmanaha. The Brahmana also accused the king of being Kshatrabandhu, which refers to a person born in the family of Kshatriyas, or the royal order, but lacking the qualifications of a royal personality. A king should protect Brahminical culture and should be very alert to the welfare of his citizens. He should not be greedy due to attachment to material enjoyment. If a person with no qualifications represents himself as the Kshatriya of the royal order, he is not called a Kshatriya, but a Kshatrabandhu. Similarly, if a person is born of a Brahmana father but has no Brahminical qualification, he is called a Brahma Bandhu or Dvija Bandhu. This means that a Brahmana or a Kshatriya is not accepted simply by birth. One has to qualify himself for the particular position. Only then is he accepted as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya. Thus the Brahmana charged that his newly born baby was dead due to the disqualifications of the king. The Brahmana took it to be the most unnatural, and therefore he held the king responsible. We also find in Vedic history that if a Kshatriya king was irresponsible, sometimes a consulting board of Brahmanas maintained by the monarchy would dethrone him. Considering all these points, it appears that the post of monarch in the Vedic civilization is a very responsible one. The Brahmana therefore said, no one should offer respects or worship to a king whose only business is envy. Such a king spends his time either hunting and killing animals in the forest or killing citizens for criminal acts. He has no self-control and possesses bad character. If such a king is worshipped or honored by the citizens will never be happy. They'll always remain poor, full of anxieties, and aggrievement and always unhappy. In modern politics, the post of monarch has been abolished, and the president is not held responsible for the comforts of the citizens. In this age of Kali, the executive head of state somehow or other gets votes and is elected to an exalted post, but the condition of the citizens continues to be full of anxiety, distress, unhappiness, and dissatisfaction. The Brahmana's second child also died at birth, and the third also. He had 9 children who all died at birth, and each time he came to the gate of the palace to accuse the king. When the Brahmana king came to accuse the king of Dwarka for the 9th time, Arjuna happened to be present with Krishna. On hearing that a Brahmana was accusing the king of not properly protecting him, Arjuna became inquisitive and approached the Brahmana. He said, "My dear Brahmana, why do you say that there are no proper Kshatriyas to protect the citizens of your country? Is there not even someone who can pretend to be a Kshatriya, who can carry a bow and arrow, at least to make a show of protection? Do you think all the royal personalities in this country simply engage in performing sacrifices with the Brahmanas, but have no chivalrous power?" Thus Arjuna indicated that Kshatriyas should not sit back comfortably on the pretext of performing Vedic rituals, but should rather be very chivalrous in protecting the citizens. Brahmanas being engaged in spiritual activities are not expected to do anything which requires physical endeavor. Therefore, they need to be protected by the Kshatriyas so that they will not be disturbed in the execution of their higher occupational duties. If the Brahmanas feel unwanted separation from their wives and children, Arjuna continued, and the Kshatriya kings do not care of them, then such Kshatriyas are to be considered no more than stage players. In dramatic performances in the theatre, an actor may play the part of a king, but no one expects any benefits from such a make-believe king. Similarly, if the king or the executive head of state cannot give protection to the head of social structure, he is considered merely a bluffer. Such executive heads simply live for their own livelihood while occupying exalted posts as chiefs of state. My lord, I promise that I shall give my protection to your children, and if I am unable to do so, then I should enter into blazing fire, so that the sinful contamination which has infected me will be counteracted. Upon hearing Arjuna speak in this way, the Brahmana replied, "My dear Arjuna, Lord Balaram is present, but he could not give protection to my children. Lord Krishna is also present, but he could also not give them protection. There are also many other heroes, such as Pradyumna and Aniruddha, carrying bows and arrows, but they could not protect my children." The Brahmana directly hinted that Arjuna could not do which was impossible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He felt that Arjuna was promising something beyond his power. The Brahmana said, "I consider your promise to be like that of an inexperienced child. I cannot put my faith in your promise." Arjuna then understood that the Brahmana had lost all faith in the Kshatriya kings. Therefore, to encourage him, Arjuna spoke as if criticizing even his friend Lord Krishna. While Lord Krishna and others were listening, he specifically attacked Krishna by saying, "My dear Brahmana, I am neither Sankarshan, nor Krishna, nor one of Krishna's sons like Pradyumna or Aniruddha. My name is Arjuna, and I carry the bow known as Gandiva. You cannot insult me, for I satisfied even Lord Shiva by my prowess when we were bow hunting in the forest. I had a fight with Lord Shiva, who appeared before me as a hunter, and when I satisfied him by my prowess, he gave me the weapon known as Pashupata. Do not doubt my chivalry. I shall bring back your sons, even if I have to fight with death personified. When the Brahmana was assured by Arjuna in such exalted words, he was somehow or other convinced, and thus returned home. When the Brahmana's wife was to give birth to another child, the Brahmana began to chant, "My dear Arjuna, please come now and save my child." After hearing him, Arjuna immediately prepared himself by touching sanctified water and uttering holy mantras to protect his bows and arrows from danger. He specifically took the arrows presented to him by Lord Shiva, and while going out he remembered Lord Shiva and his great favor. In this way, he appeared in front of the maternity home, equipped with his bow, known as Gandiva, and with various other weapons. Arjuna, who apparently had not left Dwarka because he had to fulfill his promise to the Brahmana, was called at night when the Brahmana's wife was to give birth to the child. While going to the maternity home to attend to the delivery case of the Brahmana's wife, Arjuna remembered Lord Shiva and not his friend Krishna. He thought that since Krishna could not give protection to the Brahmana, it was better to take shelter of Lord Shiva. This is another instance of how a person takes shelter of the demigods. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Kames tes ter hirta janaha prapadyante nya devataha. A person who loses his intelligence because of greed and lust forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead and takes shelter of the demigods. Of course, Arjuna was not an ordinary living entity, but because of his friendly dealings with Krishna, he thought that Krishna was unable to give protection to the Brahmana, and that he would do better to remember Lord Shiva. Later it was proved that Arjuna's taking shelter of Lord Shiva instead of Krishna was not at all successful. Arjuna, however, did his best by chanting different mantras, and he could shot arrows up and down to guard the maternity home from all directions. The Brahmana's wife delivered a male child, and as usual, the child began to cry. But suddenly, within a few minutes, both the child and Arjuna's arrows disappeared into the sky. It appears that the Brahmana's house was near Krishna's residence, and that Lord Krishna was enjoying everything that was taking place, apparently in defiance of his authority. It was he who played the trick of taking away the Brahmana's baby as well as the arrows, including the one given by Lord Shiva, of which Arjuna was so proud. Antavatu phalantesham tabhavanti afamedasam. Less intelligent men take shelter of the demigods due to bewilderment and are satisfied with the temporary benefits they award.
Quite a bit more to read, isn't there? Should we keep reading or should we divide? Divide. Okay. We actually should have stopped a little earlier between incidents, but we can stop here. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnanjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Rijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Ori Priye Vancha Kol Pitarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there are two incidents in this chapter. The first concerns the testing of the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, by Bhrigu Muni. And the second concerns this serial death of the sons of the Brahmin. Maybe I won't go back and summarize. If you have any comments or questions, you are welcome. Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, it looks like that in these last chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, again and again is established that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Like yesterday, we had this story with Shiva. There was a situation Shiva couldn't manage, and then Krishna helped. And today again, in both stories, kind of it's established how Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Is this the lesson to learn from these chapters?
I would think so.
Is there something else, some other lesson that we have to get from this?
There's much else. We hear about the ability to tolerate and how that correlates with the modes of material nature. We hear about the gentle nature of Lord Vishnu in dealing with the Brahmin, Bhrigu Muni. Principally these things we hear. There's also more, but in regard to that incident. When it comes to the second incident, we're already hearing about the importance of true Kshatriyas as distinct from false or incapable Kshatriyas. And still there's more to come. There's so much meaning throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, but these are some headline issues. Is that okay? Yes, there's like Shobhi has a question or a comment.
Maharaj, yesterday we saw that when Narad met Vrakasura, so Narad suggested him to worship Lord Shiva because Narad saw him to be in mode of ignorance. So while preaching we come across some persons like that, some people like that, should we also do that?
I don't think so. We haven't been given that duty. In Kali Yuga especially, we're recommending that everyone engage in the service of Krishna under the or through the process given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we recommended that everyone in the mode of ignorance worship Lord Shiva, the world would be quite full of Shiva bhaktas. Of course, it would be a step up for them, because right now they're just scientist bhaktas or atheists. So for them to worship Lord Shiva would be a step up, but if they're going that far, they might as well go further.
Also, Maharaj, like just now we were reading like how these sages and Bhrigu Muni were discussing who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they are all like learned people and they had good upbringings and they were cultured people. So it sometimes is inconceivable to me how, in the West, like hippies immediately accepted this, like Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they immediately engage themselves in devotional service, while these learned sages who are so wise and intelligent and all cultured, having no vices in them, they are still like figuring out who is supreme and all.
Miraculous, isn't it?
Yes.
That's Srila Prabhupada's potency, that he could take fallen, uncultured people and make them into devotees of Krishna. It's also an indication, Prabhupada told the well-known story of the music school, where if you don't know any music, then they charge you a high price, and if you do know some music, they charge you double. Because first they have to unteach you what you think you know. So that's there in the supposed followers, or even the actual followers of Vedic culture, that they know so much, or they think they know so much, and therefore it's harder to teach them than those who understand that they don't know anything. If there are no more questions, we might as well go back and read the rest of the chapter.
Hare Krishna. I just had a question regarding Krishna book itself, where it said that when you want to read the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you should have been ideally reading the first to the 9th canto, and then you're qualified to enter the 10th canto. But somehow or other, the Krishna book itself is something that you can already read before that. And I always asked myself, like, what exactly is different in the Krishna book from the 10th
What's
canto?
different from the Krishna book? What makes Krishna book different from 10th canto, so that we're recommended to read the Krishna book? Well, Krishna book is presented in such a way that one sort of gets the necessary education as one goes along. One is reminded at every appropriate juncture that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One is cautioned at the appropriate places against thinking of Krishna's pastimes as material. One is guided in so many ways by Srila Prabhupada that he considered Krishna book worthwhile to distribute even to the ordinary person. Switch.
Sorry. The text talks about anger at the slightest provocation. And I was just wondering, especially in familiar situations, that is always a challenge. I mean, it's so easily for one to be provoked. And I was thinking, how do we develop the Brahmanical qualities and create more the mode of goodness around us, especially in such challenging situations? What should be our approach?
By kirtan, especially, by devotional activities. Still we see sometimes devotees are provocable and so on. And someone pointed that out as, proof that the philosophy doesn't work. To which the answer was, you should have seen him before. Gradually, by taking to the process, even a rude, crude person becomes refined. Srila Sanatana Goswami compares the process to changing bell metal into gold by an alchemical process. So we see that even uncultured or modsy people can be elevated. Tina hina yatachilo harinami uttarila. Is that okay? Behind you.
So it is said that when we feel anger, that the intelligence is bewildered. This morning in the class, Kramakana Swami said that even if our anger is controlled, then our intelligence is still bewildered. So I'm wondering, now that we are in a state that we are less bewildered than in when we feel anger, what would be the strategy for us when anger does come?
This question was asked by my godbrother Rupanuga Prabhu to Srila Prabhupada. Rupanuga would sometimes get angry. He was a very capable person and cultured person, but he had something of a temper. And so he asked Srila Prabhupada that question, what to do when there's like a surge of anger. He wrote to Prabhupada that you've given a hint that when there's a surge of lust, one should think of Krishna and the gopis. As Prabhupada said, even if Krishna is lusty, he's unlimitedly lusty. So by thinking of Krishna, one becomes purified. So Rupanuga asked if there was a similar recommendation regarding anger. Prabhupada said, yes, you can think of Lord Nrsingadev. He said, you're only a little angry, he's unlimitedly angry.
And how does that express itself outwards?
Well, your anger, when you become Krishna conscious, then everything gets adjusted. You can overcome anger by remembering Lord Nrsingadev. You're a little angry because you've been inconvenienced or you're offended, your pride has been hurt or something. But Lord Nrsingadev's so much more angry than we are. And by thinking of him, then the mind becomes purified. Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna. First, I think I've heard that Lord Shiva is not annihilated at the end of the cosmic annihilation. Is that correct? So what exactly is happening with Lord Shiva if he's not annihilated at that stage?
Well, Shiva Tattva is a big subject. There are all these Rudras and expansions of Lord Shiva, and there's Sadashiva in the spiritual world. So, to tell you the truth, I get lost in all the Shiva high tech. But at least we know that Lord Shiva, apart from having his, of course, when the lower planets are annihilated, Lord Shiva still has a higher place. But when the whole universe is annihilated, Lord Shiva has his abode in the Mahesh Dham. Devi Mahesha Haridham Shute Shuteshu. In the Brahma Samhita it said that the lowest worlds are the Devi Dham, the material world, presided over by Durga Devi. Then there's Mahesh Dham, the abode of Lord Shiva. Then higher than that is Vaikuntha. So Lord Shiva's position is between that of the living entities and Lord Vishnu. And so he also has his own abode between the abode of the conditioned souls and Lord Vishnu.
Thank you. How is that to be understood in regard that there are many universes with many Shivas? And
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. Yes.
Hare Krishna, I'd like to ask whether Srila Prabhupada have ever considered to retell
Srila
Ramayana,
Prabhupada,
have ever considered to retell Mahabharata or Ramayana.
whether he had,
He ever considered?
whether he'd ever considered retelling Mahabharata or Ramayana. Not that I know of. Mahabharata, certainly not. It's too much. And he never indicated that. Ramayana also. No, he never talked about doing a summary. But he did, actually, at the end of on the last tape of the Krishna book, when he finished Krishna book, then he began a new book called Krishna Supplementary, His Divine Teachings, which was to be a summary of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada dictated, he filled up the tape. I don't remember whether he did one tape more, but then he stopped. He was in Los Angeles. There was some disturbance in the society that's told in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. And Prabhupada decided to leave America, and he went to Japan. So amidst those otherwise he was happily situated in Los Angeles. He was translating. It was very comfortable for him. Los Angeles weather is nice. Devotees from various temples in America, temple presidents could come there, and probably he could guide them. But then there were some activities that Prabhupada considered very disrespectful, and he decided to go to Japan. And he never went further than that first tape or two. Otherwise, that was there. Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, like what we get, what we get in this life because of our previous karmas, previous life karmas. So, like good or bad, or how many children or not children. So, like how present king is responsible for that?
How?
Present king is responsible for that.
How is the present king responsible for things, given that everything is the result of our karma? Good question. The Brahmin could have thought that way. He could have thought, well, it's just my karma. But on the other side, the king has the duty to protect the citizens. If everyone who comes would turn off their phone before they come, that would be better. It is distracting. And it's still distracting. Thank you. So somehow by karma, everything is destined. So from that point of view, we can say, well, whatever happens was my karma, and not blame anyone else. But on the other hand, it's everyone has prescribed duty to perform, and so the Brahmin charge the king, you're not performing your prescribed duty. One could look at it either way, but that's how the Brahmin chose to look at it.
It was mentioned, Maharaj, that he looked at himself and he couldn't find any fault within himself. That's why he decided it should be king's fault.
Yeah, he looked at himself and, I didn't do anything wrong, so it must be the king's fault. In the commentary, where it's, yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you indicated Harinam and also general devotional service as the cure against being afflicted by anger. And I'm taking it that it may also be the cure against all other sensual urges which get out of control.
Enecho shodhi maya na shibarolagi. Harinam Mahamantra Lautumi Magni. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I brought this all-purpose medicine. Maya na shibara. It wipes out Maya. Jautumi Magi. Lautumi Magi. Take it. It's hard to chant Hare Krishna seriously and be angry. It's hard to chant Hare Krishna seriously and be lusty. It's hard to chant Hare Krishna seriously and be envious. It's hard to be, if one's mind is focused on chanting Hare Krishna, it's incompatible with being angry, lusty, envious, crazy. So if we just chant Hare Krishna, but Yaha Krishna Taha Maya Nahi Adhikar, and Maya will have to leave the establishment.
So is it simply a question of practice to rise to that level?
Practice, good association. That okay? Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna. It's connected with this question. Often we see that we have more taste for kirtan than for japa. So why is that? If both is just repeating the holy name, somehow we are more attracted to the kirtan. When it comes to japa, we often fall asleep. When it's kirtan, generally we don't fall asleep.
Yeah. Japa is more meditational, and especially where in the West we're not accustomed to such meditation. Those who are more accustomed can go on chanting and chanting, and those who are less accustomed will find japa more difficult. It's a question of, culture among other things. It's also hard to fall asleep in the midst of a rip-roaring kirtan.
Hare Krishna. Recently it was discussed that one should always try to be absorbed in devotional service as much as possible. And that if you have more service to do than anything else, then you probably have not so much opportunity to be in Maya or do stupid things.
Yeah, before you go further, when I first came at 26 2nd Avenue, there was it's actually a little embroidered sign, and it had been embroidered by the mother of my god sister, Balai Dasi, my senior god sister. And the sign said, if you have no engagement or you have no service, then chant or read scripture. If you're always engaged in Krishna consciousness, then you cannot fall into Maya. Quite a succinct message. Carry on.
So you're in the position where you do have to earn money and work a normal job, then technically speaking, I think it's said if you give a certain amount of that to Krishna, I mean given it to the temple, given it to saintly personalities, then that's the way of, how to say, spiritualizing the activity. Mm-hmm. But then furthermore, to make it 100% spiritual, I think, as far as I understood, you also have to have Krishna in mind while doing that very activity. So the question is kind of like, how much is it spiritual by just sacrificing or just giving the result to Krishna?
Well, of course, Srila Prabhupada mentions in practically every book that the householders should give 50% of their income for the Brahmins and Vaishnavas or temples. So that's the percentage. Someone basically said, I can't do that. Prabhupada said, give what you can. Which, of course, isn't an excuse to, hold back. But if one genuinely can't give 50%, one can give what he can give. Yagyo dana tapas chaiva pavanani manishina. It's said in the 18th chapter that yagya and charity and tapasya are purifying even for the manishina, thoughtful or sagacious people. Therefore, one should always perform acts of yagya, dana, and tapa. And especially for the householders, charity is recommended. The householders are working to get money, but they become purified by charity. So charity is very important for the householders, especially. The sannyasis and brahmacharis and vanaprasthas aren't expected to accumulate money, so they're objects of charity, not sources of charity. But the householders, their duty is to be charitable. As far as thinking of Krishna, Krishna says, Ma manusmara yujyacha, think of me and fight. Someplace I heard in an explanation in recent days, was from Hari Parshad maybe, that it means especially morning and evening one should have activities by which one thinks of Krishna, not that you go through the whole day and you never think of Krishna. Because it may not be possible, you're on the phone talking to a business associate or trying to finalize a deal, and at the same time somehow or other think of Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes. That may not be something that we can pull off, but we can think of Krishna morning and evening by hearing, by chanting, by sadhana, so that Krishna consciousness will permeate our other activities. The example, you see a man, he has his desk, and on the desk there, the picture of his wife and kids is there, right? And generally, that's how it is. If you have a desk, your wife and kids or picture will be on the desk. So that means that while he's busy in his work, somehow he's remembering that I'm here for my wife and kids. So similarly, Krishna consciousness, that's family consciousness, but there can be Krishna consciousness. Is that okay?
Can I just ask a little question connected to I heard different statements about that thing of grihasthas trying to maintain the ashram by trying to earn money by direct spiritual activities like distributing books or distributing prasadam sweets or something like that. Is that something that Prabhupada was very much in favor of? Or
he was very much in favor of grahastas distributing books, and if they could maintain themselves that way, Prabhupada was totally supportive of that, encouraging of that. Yes. And some similarly by restaurants for prasadam distribution, he encouraged. But not by kirtan. Not by, or by Bhagavatam recitation. That's condemned. Trying to use Harinam as a means of earning one's livelihood, or to recite Bhagavatam as a means of earning a livelihood. No. But book distribution, very much. Yes.
Maharaj, how can we understand this Arjuna's nature of this position? Because like he's taking so risky pledges, and
he's so
risky pledge, like he's taking a
risky
pledge. Like in Mahabharata.
He hasn't pledged yet. We haven't gotten that far.
In Mahabharata, like he took pledge, like if
Jayadvaita.
Yeah. And this case also very risky promise, like his because if not possible, then he will have to go and fire.
You're ahead of the story because we haven't read that yet, but okay.
So like even like close associate of Krishna, close associate of Krishna,
close associate of Krishna.
And so like is also so such a thing for so mature devotee. So like how
it means it was Krishna's arrangement. It was Krishna's arrangement. Otherwise, we wouldn't have expected such rash promises and so on. But this is Krishna's pastime.
Just going back a little bit. So if, let's say, Grihastha is a Brahman and he is just teaching and he is getting donations as much as they give him, that's fine.
That's fine.
But it's not fine to...
That's the occupational duty of a Brahmin. The duty of a Brahmin is to teach yajan, patan, dana, pratigraha, and to receive charity. The Brahmin doesn't receive a salary. The salaries are received by the Shudras. Brahmin, he has some independent means of livelihood. If he can't make it his living by Brahminical activities, then he can adopt the profession of a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. But Bhagavatam says you should never adopt the occupation of a dog. What is that? Dog has to have a master. So an employee is compared in that verse to a dog. The Shudras, unless they have a master, they can't live. So the salaried workers, the Kshatriyas, don't get salaries. They take taxes. They give protection and they're entitled to collect tax. And the Vaishyas, they grow things, they engage in agriculture, or else they have some business, but they're not on a payroll. The Shudras may be on the payroll.
So they can teach or make kirtan, but they should not charge a certain amount.
Generally, that was the system, that they wouldn't charge a fixed fee, but they would live on contributions of their students, and that was it.
Also, I wanted to ask Maharaj, what means 50% of the income?
How is it calculated?
Yes, because sometimes,
before taxes or after taxes, and I'll let you work that out with your accountant. I suspect it has to do with how charitable one is.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the purport, it was mentioned that Brahmanas are usually excused if they make some offense. So I was thinking how it, if you could say something, how it translates to like present time, because at least for myself, I don't think we are. It doesn't seem that we as society are practicing it, because usually if somebody does something wrong, then the tendency is to crucify him.
Yeah, we as a society have much to be desired. We as a society spend too much time on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other forms of other forms of and often we're not guided by the philosophy, we're guided by our feelings and not by Vaishnava Siddhantas. We also sometimes adopt contemporary community values in preference to the values given in Shastra. These are some difficulties. I could say a lot more about that, but we have run out of time. If you like, we can take that up tomorrow. You can ask again. Time for kirtan. Good.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, oh, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gaur.
Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunigiri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri ki jai, Gangamai ki jai, Jamunamai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you all very much for coming. Have some prasadam on your way out. Hare Krishna.